Hello again. Um, Moving forward with theories. In this lecture, we're going to talk about Karen Horney, and this information is in chapter 5 and 6, I believe, in your textbook. And as always is the case, uh, I'm going to give you overviews in these lectures, and then you're expected to get the details on your own by your reading. So Karen Horney, one of the few early in psychology, one of the few females who achieved respect on her based on her work. You have to remember that we're dealing here, and by the way, excuse me, this is the last neo-Freudian, at least in this lecture, neo-Freudian psychologist that we're going to talk about, and then we're going to cover Erikson more in depth. So this will take us a little time today. But Karen Horney was the same as Adler and Jung in that she originally was a Freud proponent, but then due to her own research, as in Adler and Jung and others, went on a different path. But her way was a little different. She borrowed from previous theories, particularly Adler, Jung, and Freud. So you're going to hear stuff that's pretty familiar, and then a couple things that you will probably scratch your head over. Her theory is called blended psychology. And that's a good name for it. When you hear it, you'll understand why. Borrowed again from Adler, Jung, and Freud. Albert Adler, Carl Jung, and Sigmund Freud. And her theory states this: children feel helpless due to the need for aid when they're young. Who's that sound like? That's old Adler, right? This inferiority complex business. However, she didn't say that they developed an inferiority complex. They feel helpless because they have to be assisted in infancy. She doesn't say that either. She says when they're young. So that's going to be a wider scope. So children feel helpless when they're young, and because of that, they develop an anxiety related to that helplessness. And she called that basic anxiety. Now, in order for you to be mentally healthy, you have to correct that basic anxiety. And there were several ways, 3 biggies, that she named that you needed to participate in. It's going to sound like, when I explain these to you, that, I get a choice, right? That's not the case at all. These are the 3 specifics that people will use, according to her theory, to try to overcome this basic anxiety about this helplessness business. Number 1 is move toward people. When you move toward people, what she's saying is basically you're trying to gain acceptance and affection. Now, I'm not going to go rambling off on psychotherapy and stuff related to your if you were a person who had some acceptance issues. We're not going to talk about that. We're going to talk about gaining acceptance and affection by whatever means that you find necessary, provided they're acceptable in your culture. So moving toward people. Move away from people. That's the second approach you might take. And this is you seeking independence and privacy. It's not shunning people, seeking independence and privacy. You most likely, an illustration of this, you would be keeping people at arm's length. You want to be independent, but you want to have friends, but only part of the time during your day, for example, you want some privacy for whatever the reasons are. So move toward people, move away from people. And then the third thing is very negative. It's move against people. And the word against is the key to this. Move against people. Seek to dominate and control those around you. Again, sounds like Albert Adler a little bit, quite a bit actually, when children take the negative approach to overcoming their complex, their insecurity, their inferiority. They sometimes choose the seek and dominate, or the dominate and control aspect of this. So what does she say is the best method? Should everybody move toward people? Should everybody move away? Should everybody try to move against? And her answer was a balance of the three to achieve mental health. When you're moving against people, that's negative. When you're moving away from people, you can make that negative by being aloof. People is really the only absolute positive in this theory. But she's saying you need a little bit of all of it. So it would have to be tempered in whatever way you seem or feel is the proper way to temper it. And that would be her theory in a nutshell. And you'll read that in your text in chapter 5 and 6 and get the little details that underlie what she's explaining here. Now I'm moving on, and I have to be a little bit careful with this because I play this in a nice way. I'm going to present the theory as Erikson did. Pick up your own mind, but a lot of people, and this is not a statement being made to try to convince you that you should accept everything he says. It's a statement to advise you that this is pretty sound in terms of its reality. So it's Erik Erikson. And Erik Erikson, I won't give you the history and the background, but he was an admirer of Freud, and we'll leave it at that. He based his theory, though, a lot on John Bowlby and Mary Ainsworth's work, and probably a little bit of Thomas and Chess, the theory they developed about temperament. So if you read that in your text, when you read that section, you'll see that played out. Well, let's get into his theory right away because we're going to spend some time on this. Erik Erikson, his theory is called the 8 stages of psychosocial development. Each stage of these 8 stages has a succeed or fail outcome. Sometimes it's described as a crisis. And also, the first 6 stages are very practical. The last 2 are pretty philosophical. And I'll point that out when we get to those. And I'm going to explain this relatively in depth. Now, we're not going to go through a dissertation here, but I'm going to talk about this just for your benefit, because this really is a good description of what goes on. And when you hear this, look back over your own childhood and up to the point where you are now, you'll say, well, yeah, that sounds pretty sound. What you won't understand are the last 2 stages, 7 and 8, and I'll elaborate on those when we get there. So let's talk about these. Again, you're going to see some John Bowlby and some Mary Ainsworth in this. Ainsworth and her studies of attachment, and John Bowlby's as well. So, psychosocial development, stage 1. The age ranges here are birth to 1 year of age. And this stage is titled Trust versus Mistrust. You experience one of 2 things. You experience your emotional needs being met by your caregiver in your first year of life. Caregiver could be mom, could be whoever is your primary caregiver. Don't want to run off the rails here. But as you well know, in our day and time, it's not necessarily traditional anymore for there to be a two-parent household. We hope for that. In the case of tradition, when psychology talked about a caregiver, it was automatically assumed that that was biological mother. Well, it's not that way now. It could be anybody. Your caregiver, your primary caregiver might be Uncle Harry because that's who you spend all day with while everybody in your family's at work. So we don't know. So that's why psychology says caregiver, your primary caregiver, who's taking care of you the majority of time. So stage 1, birth to 1 year of age. Your caregiver either meets your emotional needs and hopefully physical, or they don't. And that forms your attachment. If you are on the positive side, yay for you. Your needs were met according to you. Again, this gets to be very individualized, but we can generalize it in terms of the effects. So my needs are met, then I'm on the trust side. My needs are not met, then I'm on the negative side. I'm in the mistrust side. Trust versus mistrust. I trust. I begin to be able to trust. Trust what? Most everything. And the same is true for mistrust. That leads you into stage 2. Beginning at the end of your first year of life up through the 3rd year. Now this is a little bit weird, okay? This stage is called autonomy versus shame and doubt. And here's how that develops. What is autonomy? That's independence. If I trust, then that gives me confidence. I'm trusting. I trust not only you, but I basically begin to trust myself, although at this young age, 1 to 3, you don't understand that yet. You don't have this sophisticated view of am I self-confident or not. But I'm autonomous. I seek autonomy. Have you ever heard of the terrible twos? The terrible twos are real, only they don't necessarily only occur at the age of 2. They could be at 5. It could be 1.5. I mean, this is just a general age range. 1 to 3, you're trying to establish your autonomy. You're trying to be independent. You trust those who take care of you. However, if you came through this first stage on the side of mistrust, then probably, and you're experiencing shame and doubt, why would you be shamed and doubtful? Not you being shameful, but being shamed or ashamed versus autonomy. Well, here's the reason. Parent, my mistake, caregiver may have been very critical of you, may have made fun of you when you made attempts to be autonomous. I want to tie my own shoes, and you mess it up, and they laugh and make a big joke and hurt your feelings about it. What does that create in you? That creates in you doubt in yourself. It makes you ashamed of your inabilities, as opposed to those who came from a trusting environment in their first year where they were encouraged. And now a child wants to step out and become autonomous. They want to be independent, and the caregiver encourages it, but with direction, to take care of safety things, for example, to take care of the frustrations that will come. I want to try to tie my own shoes, and you screw it up, and then maybe you get upset. And they encourage you. They comfort you. Criticism is a bad thing, anytime, anywhere. Criticism in early ages can have a profound effect on something called self-esteem. People underestimate the power of self-esteem. Back in the day, there was a word called dis. I don't know if people still use that anymore. It was short for disrespect, which basically was saying my self-esteem has been attacked. And people do all kind of bad things when their self-esteem is under attack, including murder. So it's a very powerful aspect of your emotional makeup. What is my self-esteem? Is it high or low? If I've been criticized in my early years, 1 to 3, birth to 3, but mostly 1 to 3 because you begin to understand it then. If I've been criticized, then I'm full of shame and I doubt myself. If I've been encouraged and criticized, encouraged and helped, then my self-esteem is probably intact. I told you this would be rather in depth. Stage 3. I've come through these first 2. I'm in stage 3. I'm between the ages of 3 and 6 inclusive. And now I'm looking at initiative versus guilt. Initiative versus guilt. What in the world is that? Well, where does it come from first? It comes from interaction. Interaction, and it particularly begins to show up in school, but it's already taken place if you've come up through the, I hate this word, but it has to be used, average upbringing. In other words, I've had interactions with other children, and now up to school age, and now I'm beginning school, and wow, look at the expansive interaction that takes place there. Because I may have played with 2 or 3 or 4 kids in the past, even siblings. Now I'm messing with 30 or 40 or more. So this interaction becomes very important. And if I've been encouraged, if I've had my needs met, stage 1, trust, encouraged, stage 2, of course, meaning I'm feeling good about myself, I'm seeking autonomy, and I've been successful because I've been guided and encouraged, then I am not afraid to take the initiative. Or I may not have come up on the positive side, according to this, and now I feel guilty. Now, guilty not like I've done something wrong, and I'll explain that in a minute. So if a child is on the positive side, my words, i.e. willing to take the initiative because they feel independent and confident enough to do so, then they will do that. They will try to take the initiative. I'm going to be the leader on the playground, so to speak. If you were criticized, if you're on the other side of that spectrum because your caregivers criticized or made fun of you or whatever they did, if you were trivialized and if you were shown like that this is ridiculous, what you're doing is ridiculous, or you can't do this, or all this negative stuff you might want to come up with, they may feel guilty for even trying. Another aspect that takes place here, and it begins before school and then it really takes off in school, is children ask a lot of questions. And they begin this journey of learning. They seek learning at this age. Show me how to do that. I want to do that. Show me how. I want to be able to do it myself. If that's trivialized, that's going to push them toward the guilt side. If I'm encouraged, then that's going to make me even more progressive as far as acquiring knowledge. This one's a little tricky. Initiative versus guilt. If I'm not encouraged, I'm not going to take the initiative because I don't have any confidence. I feel guilty. If I am encouraged, then I am going to take the initiative because I feel confident in my abilities. Stage 4 is probably one that you will remember more so, potentially more so from your childhood, because now we're looking at an age range of 6 to 12. And most of you you're not 12 anymore, but it wasn't that long ago that you were. And this is called industry versus inferiority. This is tough. I came up on the positive side. I'm maturing. Very important word. Make a line under that word. I'm maturing at what is an acceptable pace for my age range. So I've become, because of my confidence, because my needs were met when I was 1 year old, I've developed this self-confidence. So I don't mind stepping out and trying to learn to do things on my own. Also, I don't mind being the initiator of activities for myself. In other words, I come home from school and I study without being told. Or I clean my room without somebody telling me. Or I empty the garbage. Or I do things without guidance that are positive things. You go beyond what is expected. Okay, I know the expectation for me is when I get home, study an hour, then I can go out and hang out with my friends. Well, I'm going to study a little longer because I got a tough test coming up. So that's what we call an industry. And what does this do? It has a profound effect on your self-esteem. But if I haven't had that positive input in my life, if I've been on the other side of that versus, industry versus inferiority, trust versus mistrust, if I'm on the negative side of that versus, then I'm going to begin to feel inferior here. And look at this age range, 6 to 12. If I'm encouraged to do things, I have confidence in my abilities. If not, I will probably develop an inferior view of myself. In other words, no self-confidence, low, lousy self-esteem, bad self-worth. And I may even develop an inferiority complex, which is a feeling of overall lack of self-worth. You've met people who have inferiority complexes, whether you know it or not. Many times they're seeking, they're trying to be accepted. There's a personality spectrum, I'll call it. Type C personality, where people are constantly seeking acceptance and they're demeaning themselves to give you control over them because they think that will make them accept you. And many times it backfires. Rather than be accepted, they're treated like this person here is useless because they can't do anything. And so you develop this inferiority complex. In Erikson's view, stage 4, 6 to 12 years of age, is when this shows up. You potentially can have an inferiority complex by the age of 12. Lacking in self-worth, lacking in self-esteem. Stage 5, probably the one, that's going to be the most familiar to you because you're living it basically now. Stage 5 and 6 you are. Stage 5, adolescence. This is termed industry versus role identity versus role confusion. By the time you reach adolescence, 13, 14, 12, 13, 14, right in that age range, you should have begun to recognize your identity. You should have formed an identity by now. What does this entail? Understanding myself. Now, and then the second part of this, pay close attention. Acceptance of myself does not mean that I wouldn't like to change some things. However, I accept the fact that I'm okay, but I can improve here, there, or whatever. So I have a good understanding of who I am, and I accept it with the idea that, yeah, there may be a few things I need to work on. But it's not damaging to your identity. I hope that makes sense. I'm me, I like it, but I'm going to fix this part of it because I could be better. And if you aren't on that side of the verses, then you're on the role confusion side. What is role confusion? It's an identity crisis. And again, you've met people like this. Confusion leads to attempts, sometimes massive, to adopt an identity or create an identity. Gangs, clubs, organizations, some thrive on this. Cults thrive on this, meaning that they offer you an identity. Many people that are in those kinds of situations are seeking an identity, and they're offered one, and they're offered acceptance if they join up, and now they become totally immersed in whatever this cult slash gang slash whatever is, and they will defend that identity to the death in some cases. So it's very powerful. Self-esteem plays a role in this. I hope you get it. Is it world ending for you if you're having some role confusion? No. There's help for that. There are people out there in the world, and you probably have met these, who have yet to discover what their identity is, and they're 65 years old. They've changed jobs a million times. They've gone to school, dropped out of school. They just aren't settled people. And part of that could be role confusion, believe it or not. Another very powerful thing identified by Erikson. Stage 6. Some of you are here. Early adulthood. Intimacy versus isolation. Intimacy means that it started when I was 1. You took care of me. You're my caregiver. You took care of me. You encouraged me through stage 2. You encouraged me and supported me all through adolescence. And now I'm an early adult. I'm in early adulthood. And I have this aspect of intimacy that's well-founded. I can have close friends and enjoy it. I'm trusting. Versus isolation. That doesn't mean you run out in the woods and build a little hut out there and become a hermit. It means that you keep people at arm's length. What does that sound like? Sounds like moving against people, doesn't it? Karen Horney. Isolating yourself. Not having close friends, having a lot of acquaintances or a few acquaintances. Romantic situations are tough for you if they even exist because you have no trust. You have no confidence in yourself. That's stage 6. The last 2 stages, philosophical. Not so much in the next stage, stage 7. Way more philosophical, stage 8. So let's look at stage 7, and we'll begin to wrap this up. Middle adulthood, stage 7. There's no age assignment here. You notice there was no age assignment in adolescence either, because Erikson got away from that after stage 4. So stage 7, middle adulthood, you're not there yet. What he says here is you will enter a period of what's called generativity. And I'll explain these two separately because they're confusing, and you're not going to be very familiar with them. Generativity. That means you feel like you're making a mark on the world that makes the world a better place. There's a lot of philosophy there. Maybe you become involved in charity work, for example. Or you do things that you think are going to promote the well-being of the generation that's right behind you. In other words, you are leaving a positive legacy as you pass through this lifespan of yours. But what if it didn't work too good? What if I'm looking at what I've done so far and I go, my word, what in the world? This is a mess. I haven't accomplished anything. I'm not helping anybody get any better in the way that they live. Whatever the case is, whatever your negative thoughts are, then he says you enter into a period of stagnation. You become disinterested in doing better for others, and you become very cynical. And according to Erikson, you pursue materialistic things, meaning you go out and you do things to accumulate more money or whatever it is, it's materialistic. Don't confuse this with midlife crisis, because this is not a midlife crisis. A midlife crisis is something different, and I won't tie your time up any longer explaining that. You can look it up. But stagnation means that I'm no longer concerned with making a mark on the world. I'm just going to accumulate materialistic things and try to make myself happy. And then finally, the last stage, and this one you probably won't understand. You may. This is old age. This is late adulthood. This is retirement age, late retirement age. And it's called ego integrity versus despair. And it's very simple to explain. You won't really get this because you're not old. Old people look at this and they go, this is absolutely where I'm at. Ego integrity. It means that you take a long backwards look over your life and you go, I got it done. I'm happy with what I did. I got a degree that I wanted, the job I wanted. I got I got material things that I sought after. I got a good family because maybe a black sheep here or there, but I'm good to go. I'm happy. And I can relax and things will be fine. Or I look back over it and I go, uh-oh, I didn't get anything done that I wanted to get done. I failed at my degree. I didn't get my pilot's license. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. I'm a failure. And they enter into this period of despair, which probably is going to lead to elderly depression. They're very unhappy people. That's the last stage. So don't be that despondent person. Accomplish your goals. Set out and set a goal and accomplish it. And this stage 8 will be positive for you. And you got a long time before you get there. All righty. I hope you get something out of this. This is rather long. Didn't mean to go that long, but I wanted to get this point across. All right. See you next time.